Okay, so for the next couple of projects, we're going to have to build something that looks like this. Okay? So you can ultimately need 8 different LEDs. I chose 3 greens, 3 yellows, and 2 reds. So you can choose whatever you want. I really don't care. I do know that from time to time I refer to a color as a position. So if you want to build it exactly like this, it'll maybe be slightly easier, but it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, we're going to go. We're just going to build scales, and we're going to introduce arrays and a couple other things. So we're going to use something of this nature to get it done. So 8 different LEDs. You're going to need 8 resistors. I'm at my home office right now. I don't have those little resistors that we have in the classroom. I bought those tiny resistors that we'd used in the past specifically to make it easier to find without actually having to read the bands. So the bottom line is you're going to use those tiny little resistors that we have in the classroom that are 220 ohms, and you're going to need 8 of those. You're also going to need 8 short wires. I'd like you to build it pretty much exactly like I have done right here. 8 short wires for the signal. You're probably going to want 2 wires that you can use for power and ground. And notice over here, I've decided to connect the buses together right from the get-go. So you're going to need 2 wires here. Again, I would probably go with red and black, designating power and ground. So you can see that I've got my grounds connected and my powers connected to either side. And I've also used the same color designation here to hook power and ground up to this bus. So now the ground, for example, which goes into the blue bus, runs along, is connected to this ground, which then runs along and is connected to the blue bus here, where every single LED is connected. Okay? So that being said, let me pause this, tear it apart, and I'm going to build maybe 2 circuits with you, and then I want you to get all 8 of them going, and I'll be right back. Okay, so let's start off by formatting the board. Like I said in the introduction, I'm going to use 2 reds, or I'm going to use a red and a black initially to connect both sides of the bus. So I'm going to take a black one right here, plug it into blue, black one here, plug it into blue. Okay, now those 2 buses are connected. I'm going to do the same thing with the power. Those are now connected. I'm going to take a black wire and I'm going to connect it to this corner right here. Right? That one right there. That's a ground corner. I'm going to plug it in and plug it into anywhere on the blue bus. Like so. And to use this switch, right, I'm going to go ahead and plug the red into the one next to the black. So that one right there. Alright. I'm going to plug it into the red bus. And I now have a switchable bus. I can turn it on and off with this switch. And it's running at 5 volts as set by this jumper. Okay? So I can turn it off. I'm going to turn it off for the moment. So now, right off the screen here, I've got a bunch of LEDs. So I'm going to start off with just 1 green, and I'm going to make sure that you can see mine are pretty clearly bent. The short wire is the ground. The longer wire with the bend is the positive. Okay? So I'm going to set the short wire with the ground into, for example, right there. So you can see that that short wire is plugged into the blue bus and the long wire is plugged into, it looks like column 3. Now I'm going to take one of my resistors. Again, yours are going to be a little smaller than mine. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it in the same column 3 and reach it across. Okay? So currently it's across the IC gap. And then I'm going to take a light colored wire and I'm going to plug it in to the same column like so. Okay? And I'm going to plug this into pin 0. Okay? In fact, I'm still running the program, so you see it just lit up. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. So the short wire into the blue bus. Some distance away, I'm spanning it by every 3. Then a resistor. spanning across the IC gap. And then I'm going to use a white wire, and I'm going to connect it to pin 1. Okay, I'll do one more with you all, and then I'm just going to pause it and build the rest of it. Doesn't take me long. So I'll go ahead and put this in like this, short wire into the blue bus, long wire across, take a resistor, plug it into the same column, like so, and plug it into the next available port, which is 0, 1, and now I'm at 2. Alright, so let me pause it and build the rest, and I'll rejoin you in just a moment. Okay, so now I've completely built this circuit. Don't worry about the code right now. We'll get into it for sure. Don't worry about that. And I've got everything connected. I've got every single LED connected to the blue bus with the ground wire. I've got every single positive jumping across with a 220 ohm resistor, the tiny one in the classroom. And then I've got it hooked up from pins 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's it. All the way from 7. So I've got 8 LEDs including 0, and they're running along in a nice little program. Alright? Now, a couple of the videos I'm going to show you are a bit older, and it was when we were in COVID lockdown, and students had to build things with materials they can get locally. So a lot of them were using some of the original Uno boards, something that looked like this, or potentially a slightly different color, like for example this one. Okay, and you're going to see it placed up here. So I'm not going to shoot all the videos over again, but I'm going to shoot a few of them for certain. So just realize that ultimately it's the same thing. Okay, so far as what we're doing for the next couple of experiments. Ultimately, we just need to build the circuit so we can see the 8 LEDs. Don't worry so much about the board. Just realize that you are using pins 0 through 7. Okay? I'm going to leave it with that, and then I'll introduce some simple coding, and then we'll move on from there. And I'll see you soon.